Hi, friends. This style of video is a little bit different. This is my very first interview that I'm about to show you with Mimi Ikonn, and I'm so excited. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode, but a little bit of a background as to why I decided to do an interview. A longer explanation is in my Columbia blog towards the end, where I do behind the scenes of recording and preparing for this interview. But basically, I really just wanted to do something different and bring you a new perspective besides just my perspective. Mimi is someone who has inspired my personal growth journey so much growing up. And so I wanted to shed light on some of her values, principles, and how she's been able to get to where she is. Mimi is an incredible human of much depth. So this episode, to no surprise, is also very deep. We talk about some really deep topics, including Mimi's separation from her partner, Alex, how to break out of the lack money mindset, and so much more. I am so excited for you to see this. I hope you enjoy this, and if you'd like me to interview someone else, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. But with that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode.
I'm like, why am I getting
Yeah.
emotional? It's so,
Oh
maybe it's
no.
just the energy thing. I'm like, this is interesting, you know, fascinating. Just
Oh.
thought I'd mention. I don't know. Maybe it's your
Oh.
energy I'm
Oh.
picking up
I hope
on.
it's not a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing. It's like, I'm like, I'm already tearing up. Why?
Oh
What
my
is, maybe it's your
gosh.
love with your boyfriend. I don't know what it is.
Oh,
Something
that's
got
so
me already.
sweet. Oh, well, Mimi, it is an honor to have you and to speak with you today. I'm very, very grateful to be speaking with such a beautiful soul like you. Um, And I know that in the past you've mentioned your purpose, and it actually really struck a chord with me. You've mentioned that your purpose in life is to love, to be love, and to share love. And so I would love to know, what does it mean to you to be love?
First of all, Paola, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I think it's the first time I've started a podcast with a meditation. I love it. It's so nice to just take a moment because it's always exciting before you start something to just center in the heart and make sure that you're speaking intentionally from here because oftentimes we jump to the head, but I will be very mindful to bring myself back to my heart as we have this conversation today, and really love what you're doing in the world and very excited to have a virtual chat for now, but I know one day probably we'll meet in person. Life works in miraculous ways, and we'll have this conversation in person as well. But thanks so much. And how interesting that sometimes people will say things to me that I've said publicly that I don't remember saying publicly. Obviously, like I know this is my purpose, but I don't remember ever sharing that. But I'm sure maybe it was on one of my stories or maybe in a video. Like I forget sometimes the stuff I share, but I think it's so important, right? Because we channel stuff out. There's so much about us that we can share, and sometimes we don't share. And sometimes we feel compelled to share, and never underestimate the power of what you do share, because you never know what people will pay attention to and how it can positively change their world, their life, help them make a decision. So in terms of my purpose, yeah, I've always felt very drawn to love. Since I was a little girl, I've been like doodling hearts and writing love on all the papers I could find. And I think many of us do, because love is the most powerful force there is in the universe. It's why we're all here. It's what unites us all. And I remember in times of fear and anxiety, um, anytime in any challenging moment, what always brings me out of that is my connection to the love and my connection to the source that's within me that I can feel, which is comes here from the heart. And I became aware of this probably in my early 20s when I was going through a very difficult emotional time. I had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of fears that I didn't realize were there, but it was the first time in my life. I think it was around the time when I first just got married. I was about 23, 24. I started a business. Everything was going so well in my life, And then all this fear came up. And at the time, I didn't know why it was coming up when my life seemed so perfect on the outside. But years later, when I read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, have you read that one?
I haven't.
You
I'll
haven't?
write
Yeah,
that
it's
down.
it's quite a deep read. I listened to it actually on Audible. I recommend listening to it if you like listening to books because it's a heavy one to read physically. But anyways, you could dip in and out either way. But I found a lot of answers in that book. Um, and the most important one is that our body keeps trauma in our body, whether it's from childhood or our adult life. So many things happen to us. And oftentimes, when something shocks us, our body captures that trauma, keeps it in the body until it feels safe to release. And when does it feel safe to release? When we feel safe. So in my case, it was a time in my life where I felt safe, being with a person who felt very safe and secure. My ex-partner, like actually for the first time ever living in financial abundance. So all these things were met, and yet like there were all this fear coming up. And I remember this connection to love was like the light out of that darkness for me in that moment. And I even booked, I was in San Diego at the time, and I even booked an appointment to with a tattoo artist. I was gonna like put it on my hand, like love, be love, spread love. Because I
Oh,
remember
I
like
love that.
in any moment of darkness, I was like, this is why I'm here. I'm here to be love. I'm here to spread love. And why, I guess you asked why, because it's like, this is it. Because we get lost on the path, right? Like the ego takes over. We start projecting our traumas, our insecurities. And anytime this happens to me now, even, right? Like I've done a lot of inner work. I'm in my 30s now, but it's a lifelong journey. You will forever be triggered, and your shadow will come up, and it's okay. It's all part of what makes us human, is our imperfections. Our shadows are as beautiful as is our light. And for me, this connection to love always brings me back to what matters and what's important and why I'm here. And do you feel like that answers your question? Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, I love that. It definitely does. And I find it really inspiring that you yourself have gone through your own journey of, you know, mental health in terms of, going through depression and anxiety and navigating that while being a figure online and showing yourself to the world and, putting your best self out there. So, how did creating content online help you evolve into the best version of yourself?
It's a good question. I think at the time, it was an outlet for my creativity where I got to shut off the part of me that felt like so heavy and anxious and depressed. And for these 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever I was filming, because at the time I was still doing my hair tutorials. We had this business called Luxy Hair, which was clip and hair extensions. We were one of the first businesses, like e-commerce businesses, to sell B2C on YouTube. This was 2010, the OGs. And I remember
Yeah.
for those few minutes, I was sitting in front of the camera. Usually it would take me about roughly an hour. Sit, figure out what I'm going to film, and then film it. And, if it worked, it would be great. If it didn't, refilm, you know how it goes. But I would completely go in the flow. And in that moment of the flow, I was not thinking, I was not suffering, I was just there. And I think this is so
Mm.
important to remember, that ultimately also we're often faced with depression or anxiety because our body is trying to tell us something. If we are not aligned with our life purpose, it often will give us triggers. It will show us where there's misalignment, and we can either listen or we can numb. There's always a choice. And again, there's nothing wrong with either one. If the soul is choosing to numb for now, well, that's the choice of the soul. Right? And that can go on for years or lifetimes. Who says what's right or what's wrong? I always do my best not to judge and just give grace to myself and everyone, because we're all on different journeys and we all come from different places. But in my case, I'm filming. Sorry.
No
Alexa,
worries.
please close the door, my angel. I'm filming. Okay. So sorry. She didn't go to school
Send
today,
my
so
love to Alexa.
thank you. Thank you. Alexa, my love, really, I need to film. You can use screen time if you want. No, no, no. Wait, yes, go, go. Yes, okay, go.
You're not gonna say after I catch me on the screen and be like, no.
This will be your screen time for today. Okay. Yes. Okay, you're good. But please do not interrupt, okay? Thank you, my love. Sorry.
No worries.
I told her I'm filming, but actually she's good with these, but she just anyways.
No worries
Sorry,
at
what was the
all.
question? Let me recenter. Um,
We were talking about how content creation has helped you.
sorry. It's in just pull out the one of the drawers in the living room. Close the door, please. Thank you. Okay, let's restart that point.
No worries.
Okay, yeah, going back to yeah, so when we are aligned with the work we do, when it gives us that energy, when it gets us in the flow, is when we know we're doing the right thing in life, or if we're with that person, or if we are in that community, or if we're in that city. I feel like oftentimes when we feel good is when we're aligned. Because people often ask, how do I know if I'm aligned? Well, you wouldn't be asking questions, first of all. When you're aligned, you're just flowing. You're like, this feels good. Let me do more of that. Or it feels good to be with this person. Let me spend more time. You don't question. You know, when we go into this crazy cycle of psychoanalysis, and it's okay, it serves its purpose, but usually that's when there are some karmic lessons we need to learn to elevate, expand, grow, and get so it can get us to a place of more alignment. So I think, yeah, creative work for me has always been a place where I go to channel whatever needs to come through me into this world. And I often don't even take credit, like, oftentimes don't even remember what I said during those videos I filmed. I don't film as often anymore, but I do intend to come back on YouTube at some point this year. I'm very excited for that because I've
That's
been
amazing
offered to.
news.
Thank you. I've been offered to write a book, and it's yeah, it's very exciting, but I want to make it more of a movement. So I think it's time for me to come back. So yeah, I really enjoyed those times of, and I still do enjoy when I create even like short reels for YouTube. And I'm sure you can agree this is why you do it, is because in those moments of creativity, I literally lose sense of time and I'm so present. And I always am very conscious if something doesn't give me joy, I eliminate it because I'm here to step into and focus on things, relationships, experiences that give me that sense of flow and energy and that feeling of expansion. And having said that,
Absolutely.
that's not always real life, right? There will be moments where you will have things you don't enjoy, and that's okay as well. But how can we have more of those experiences and people and places?
Yeah. That's amazing to hear. I know that sometimes it's really hard for us to decipher, what is intuition versus what is impulse.
Hmm.
And I know that you really connect to your intuition to make big and small decisions in life. So, what advice do you have for those who are still getting to know their intuition and their inner wisdom and use that as a compass for their life?
I love all your questions, girl. You like to go deep. What's
I
your star
do.
sign?
Thank
I'm
you.
so curious. What is your star sign? I'm really into astrology and I'm
Oh,
curious.
really? Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini.
Gemini. Okay. Geminis are very
Yeah.
curious. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
bubbly. Okay. You fit that profile very well. Love it.
Thank you.
Um, so connecting to an intuition, I feel like is a lifelong journey. Some of us are very connected from an early age and some of us are disconnected, and that's okay. It's never too late to build that relationship with yourself. I realized in the last 2 years, because I had to make a very difficult decision of ending a long-term relationship I was in. My ex-partner and I, Alex, we were business partners, life partners, parents. best friends for 16 years. So it's, I don't know many people my age, younger, even older, who have been in such long-term relationships, but not that even that the longevity, it was like a very healthy, wholesome, loving relationship. And I feel like ending something that's toxic is so much easier when it's like good and healthy, but something is missing, or you feel like you have outgrown it, or you feel like you're called to something else. So it was very difficult for me to make that decision. Why I bring this story in is because if it wasn't for my intuition, I wouldn't have known what to do and how to proceed. And I would have probably stayed in a situation that was just comfortable, which was my relationship, that I was in, that I knew so well. And that was so safe and was my comfort zone for like literally 16 years. And as I was going through probably almost a year of like turmoil on the inside, trying to decide what to do, whether I should stick with it or whether I should leave it. Because again, at the end of the day, when you don't have these external, like, um, disturbing moments of like someone abusing you or being mean to you, like it's not my story. I remember even hearing someone saying, like back in the olden days, they used to say to women, if he doesn't drink, he doesn't cheat, he doesn't beat you, you don't leave him. And I'm like, okay, we've come on along. It's not 2025 is not okay. Yeah, he doesn't do any of these things, and he is on top of that, an amazing person. And yet, I feel something on the inside, aka intuition, is telling me like I need to leave this relationship. So how do you navigate that? And for me was probably one of the, if not the most difficult decisions of my life, because it's a long time to be with someone. You almost like become one person. And I remember I was flying, I think to Austria, to Vienna, and I had a couple of hours on my own on the flight, and I was going back and forth on what to do. And I remember thinking, let me journal all the things in my life that I've done based on my intuition that maybe didn't make sense to other people at the time, or even myself logically. Because again, we pass a lot of information, if not all of the information, through our head constantly. And sometimes it's just not a head decision, it's a gut decision. And I was thinking, what are those decisions I made from an earliest age I can remember myself until now? And literally made a list. I know this notebook is somewhere, I need to find it. But it was literally like at least 7, 8 pages of
Wow.
notes. And as I reflected back on all those big and small decisions, some of them was quitting a job when I really needed a job because I was not being treated well, or like something was off in that dynamic or environment. Um, One of them was leaving a park when I was a teenager with my friends. And then something happened in that park, and all of our other friends got arrested. And if I got arrested, my dad would have been furious. And I remember our friends came back later that day and they were like, why did you leave? And I don't know why I left. I just had this intuition, we need to leave now. And me, my cousin, and my sister, I was like, girls, let's go. And yeah, they all got arrested. So we would
Wow.
have been as well, because we didn't do anything, but one of the boys broke something. So yeah, like these little and big moments in life where you just like, I need to do this before it goes through your head. And I was like, okay, apparently I do have a good relationship with my intuition, and it's always brought me to better places in life. Having said that, it's still difficult to make that decision if it doesn't make logical sense. And another part of my process was like sitting with the decision before you make, again, any decision. It could be what to eat, which workouts to start. Let's say there's two different programs. You want to lose weight or get in shape, and you're like, which way do I go? Do I go to the gym? Do I do a home workout? Like, which one feels more exciting, expansive, like lighter? And it was interesting because in my decision to leave a relationship, like leaving a relationship is much more difficult, because all of a sudden you become a single mom, you become, your whole life changes. Like you have to move to a new place, you have to like start everything over in a way. And yet that felt very exciting and expansive. and imagining myself staying in a relationship felt very contracting. Like, it's like I have to stay small. And I was like, ouch. Like, why does it feel this way? It's like my logic was almost like, oh, I want you to choose this because it's the safer choice. Obviously, it's my mind trying to protect me. And yet my body is giving me all the signals that it's time to take this path. And it's it hasn't been 2 years yet, but it's been like over a year and a half that I've been like separated now. And I can say, wow, the amount of growth has been unbelievable. And even though it hasn't been easier in any way, I've been in some ways happier, more energetic. Like the feedback I get from all my friends and family in real life, but also online as well, which is interesting how people pick up on this energy. People are like, you're glowing, you're like in your power. We feel like when we look at you, we feel so inspired. And I'm thinking, but my life is in no way easier at all. And yet I've expanded in the energy. I can feel it and they can feel it. So it is fascinating. And I think it brings me to a conclusion that simply life is not meant to be the safe thing where you know everything and everything is known. And if you're in a city, like this is where you're going to live forever. Or if you're in a country, sorry, if you have a business or a job, like this is all you get to do for the rest of your life. I mean, again, if this feels aligned and it brings you joy, nothing wrong to stay in that city for the rest of your life, or that relationship, or that job, or that business. But if something is off and you ignore it, what happens long term is that you get unwell. If you don't hear those calls, it starts escalating until you hear the call. And sometimes it doesn't end so well, for the relationship or for our health, if we don't pick up on the small calls and we wait for it to scream at you that you need to make a change in your life. So I realized that I can hear the whispers of my intuition because I've
Wow.
been doing the inner work for many, many years. Meditation, like we started this talk with one, like I've been meditating since early 20s. My mom has always been into spirituality, so I've always been connected to my heart and my soul. And yet, yeah, the mind is very powerful for over a year. And even sometimes till now, it's like, I call it, can I swear on your podcast?
Of course.
Yeah, my mind does the what the fucking, I go like once in a while it'd be like, what the fuck have you done? And I'm like, oh, it's doing it again.
Oh.
It's like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, I know, don't worry, we'll be fine. It's almost like you become your own parent, right? Like yeah, I felt like, yeah, for the first time I've truly became an adult because again, for myself, I got into my long-term relationship with my ex Alex when I was so young. I was 21, he was 20. And it's like we grew
Wow.
up together. And I think a lot of people do what I'm doing now in my 30s and their 20s when they're like living on their own and like making a bunch of mistakes. And I did it in a different way in my container of a relationship. And now there's all these new lessons. And again, it helps me to build that relationship with my intuition. Again, going back to your question of intuition is all about your relationship with yourself and honoring yourself and being in tune with yourself and embodying fully who you are, your power, your energy, your authenticity.
That's beautiful. And,
Thank you.
I have watched your videos on YouTube and Instagram for years. And I have to
Thank you.
say, it has been absolutely beautiful to witness from an outside perspective because, of course, we never know what's really happening
Mm-hmm.
behind a screen. But from an outsider's perspective, I have admired your relationship with Alex. I was a teenager when I first started watching your videos, and those are formative years. And, you guys were a really great example of what I would want my relationship to look like in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been even more beautiful to watch how what you call conscious expansion.
You've done your research, yes. I love it. Yeah.
And I just think that it is so admirable how you
Mhm.
both have carried yourselves, how you both still have so much love for each other and respect, and you're still able to co-parent and be business partners together. And it's been beautiful to witness. And I would love to know, why do you think that things happen the way that they did? Do you feel like there's something bigger that you were meant to learn from this experience?
You mean the conscious expansion?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Or this new chapter of your life, discovering
Yes,
the new
the
Mimi.
1 million, the billion-dollar question. First of all, thank you for being on my journey with me since you were a teen. I think you're, how old are you now, if you don't mind me
I'm
asking?
25, about to turn
25, so
26 in May.
nice. It's such a great age, but also it's a pivotal age. It's actually when I was faced with a lot of my um yeah, it's interesting. They say it's the age of the, from astrological point of view, is the age of when the Saturn returns, is like we go through this massive shift. So for me it was around 25, 26, 20, started at 24, ended at 26. Everything I learned in that period is like I was integrating until 36. Then the Saturn returned, and that's when separation happened. So I feel like everything I'm learning now, I will be like not preaching in a way, but embodying for the next like decade of my life. But going back to Alex and I think, not even I think, let me correct that. I know from experience that the best relationships, especially romantic ones, are built on friendship. Yes, you need sexual polarity. Yes, you need all the other things that would make a relationship beautiful. But ultimately, if you don't have friendship, it's not going to survive the time. But if you do have friendship, then your relationship can expand in many beautiful ways. And for us, it's interesting because it started as friendship. We were colleagues at work. Then it became romantic relation for 16 years. And now in a way we're friends again, where we are, we go on like lunch dates or even dinner dates sometimes now, where he'll tell me about what he's going through in dating someone else. I'll tell him what I'm going through, and we can even hold space for each other. It's funny, I haven't shared this even publicly yet. Like people wouldn't even believe what's possible when you take the ego aside. And if you ask yourself, if I really love this person genuinely, wholeheartedly, what do I care about the most? And is that I care about the well being of this person as much as I would care about the well being of myself. And in our case, let's say with the separation, yes, it was my decision to transition our relationship again from romantic to platonic again. And yet I did it with the most respect, because I feel like if you can give someone what they want, the most honest thing to do is to let them free, which is painful because many people, most people stay in relationships because they're like, ooh, what if I don't find someone better? Ooh, what if, they'll fall in love with someone else, and then again, I won't find someone like them. I'll lose them forever. This is the risk you have to take. I just believe that ultimately, if you're meant to be with someone, you will be with them. And if something feels off, you can't force it either. And for example, in my case, I've never felt like I want to end my relationship, not even once in 16 years. So I knew that when that feeling came, it was not normal. I know there are people who go through breakup, they break up, make up, break up, make up. But knowing those relationships through like friends or some family, I know that those relationships didn't last. They ended eventually. Um, Whereas in my case, that was never the case. Like we've always worked through everything, but we came to a point where I just felt like our relationship has already become more of this, at least from the way I felt, it became more of this, not even platonic, but it's like we became more companions, because you have to keep in mind, not only have we were together for 16 years, we spent a lot of time together. Like we work together, we do everything together. So I think in a normal relationship, this is like 30 years together. Because normally couples don't spend so much time together unless they work
Yeah.
together like we did. Um, so it feels like we spend a whole lifetime together. And I feel like perhaps everything I have learned, I could have learned in this dynamic at this time, I have learned. And now I need to learn something else. And I feel like at this moment, like I need to leave to learn all the, like it just, he doesn't trigger me in the way that will spark this growth that needs to happen for my soul's journey. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, people often feel this way, but they stay in relationships beyond the expiry date, right? Again, romantic relationship, because the relationship didn't end. We still have a beautiful friendship and we are family for life. I'm not sure how people, if you love someone, whether it's for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 16 years, 30 years, how can you ever stop loving them if you've loved them? I don't know. Again, this is my longest relationship, so I cannot compare with anything else. I just know that I can't stop loving I love. And that's why this conscious choice, to be honest from the beginning, the moment I felt this feeling, I told him right away. I was like, listen, this is how I feel. And then, we tried to talk, we tried to make it work for months and months and months. And then I just had to be honest. And I said, listen, I think we need to separate and then see, reassess, 6 months, we reassess in a year. And then as long as we keep this relationship, which is friendship, then you don't burn the bridges. Maybe we're meant to reconnect in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe never. We don't know. And that's the thing. I think a sobering part of it all has been the fact that, yes, as girls especially, we grow up watching Disney movies and all these Hollywood movies with the happily ever after. And the truth is, yes, sometimes people are lucky and they are together until the end of their time here on planet Earth, but eventually it ends. All of it ends. Sometimes, most cases they don't, right? Like even when it comes to marriages, I think something like 50-60% of all marriages end. Um, I don't remember in what timeline, but they end, period. And the ones that don't end, they don't necessarily are they don't stay together because they're happy. They stay together because they can't afford to separate because now they have multiple children or a child, or they just simply can't separate because they can't emotionally separate from each other. It's almost like this trauma bond. I'm sure we all know many people who are in this trauma bond relationships where it's like a love hate relationship and yet they stay together forever. And yes, there is the longevity, but how do you measure success? Ultimately, I think there's no right or wrong. If you measure success based on how long you've spent with someone, and for you it's like, I need to be with this person until the end of my time, so maybe we'll spend 50 years together, 70, whatever, however long you live, right? Cool. So you will do anything to stay in that relationship, whether you're cheating on each other, doesn't really matter. Whether, all these other elements don't matter, because all you care about is that you on paper stay together. Paula, it's so interesting because when I came clean to a lot of my friends, or just even people I would meet, I was going through a shock, like even myself, like that I want to end my relationship. And I would tell people how I feel. So many people would be like, oh, this is normal. Just go cheat. Just, you know, and I'm like, no, that doesn't align. This doesn't align. Yeah, some people, I'm not saying everyone, but
I can't
everyone would
believe
then
that.
come clean. People would come clean with their stories and they would be like, this happens, it's fine, this is normal. This is what you do. So everybody has their own solution. And I'm not in a place to judge, by the way. All I learned through that period of my life is that, you know what? Everyone is just doing themselves. And I'm if it works for them, great. Again, does it feel aligned? For me, transparency and honesty is one of my top values. So if I feel a certain way, just I can't force myself to lie. I can't force myself to do anything I don't want to do. It's just who I am. Again, right? You have to live in alignment with yourself. And when you're off, again, your body will tell you, it's just simply people numb their body. They drink, They take drugs, they use sex, they use whatever, entertainment, shopping, to distract themselves from the elephant in the room, which is what their body is telling them. Again, it could be job related, it could be anything related. Romantic relationships, obviously, is what we're talking about. But in my case, yeah, it's a gosh, yeah, it was a very difficult decision, but I'm very grateful because Alex is a very secure man. I, I pick well, and he made it easy on me as well, where he respected me, and he respected and understood that, again, you can't force. If someone feels like they need to leave this relationship because something is missing for them, then you have to honor it. You can't force certain things. And I'm so grateful that he made it easy for me, and also, like, he didn't step into his ego, like, how dare you want to end this relationship. He's like, I understand it's very painful, but I still love you and I'm still here for you. And it's been such a beautiful journey because, in some ways, our love has even expanded more for
Wow,
each other. Because this is
that's
the
powerful.
ultimate. This is the ultimate love. Like, I let you go and I love you and I'm still here for you, no matter what. How many people can say that? To be honest, I don't know anyone.
I don't know anybody. I really
Actually, I know
don't.
one couple. Yeah, we met them a few years ago, and they've gone through this similar journey, and it's so sweet because she's dating someone else now. He recently remarried, and she was doing like this beautiful speech. And actually, she even wrote a book. I forget the title, but I can share it with you later. I think it's called Love After Love. Yes, her name is
Mm,
Leia. Yeah, she's American. She lives in Paris. Absolutely love their story. They also have a little girl. Very similar journey. So yes, I have met
wow.
some people, but not in my close circle, I would have to say, um, where I'm like, wow, this exists. This is amazing. So we're definitely not the only ones doing it. And I feel like partly maybe we are part of this new narrative that it doesn't have to be one
Absolutely.
way, where if you don't want to be with me, like a little kid having a tantrum, now I hate you. I never want to have you in my life. You canceled, right? Like, we can't cancel people just because, you know, they no longer feel a certain way. And who can force feelings? This is one thing, we don't have control over our feelings. If you don't feel like you want to be in a romantic relationship with someone, there's nothing you can do to force yourself. It's just, you can't, right? And I
Right.
think even like, I was judged at first by even a few friends, and I remember sharing vulnerably, and they were like, okay, I get it. Because when you explain, you're like, you can't force it. It's like, okay, like, what do you say to that, right? Like, I love the person, but I just don't want to have it in that way anymore.
Yeah. I
You
admire your
can honor it.
courage.
And I think many people force, especially many women, they force, even men force. They force out of fear, they force out of family, and I understand. They force out of comfort, of what the relationship brings to them. But if you ask them, actually, are you happy with your partner? Does this feel aligned? Does this bring joy? The answer is no. And that's okay. As long as you can sit with it and live with it, that's totally fine. So for me, I guess I chose growth and expansion. And it's been a fun journey, I'll tell you that. I'm definitely, in some ways, a new person, in some ways rediscovering myself, um, from before I was in a relationship, certain parts of myself that also change, because I think when you are in a committed relationship, you almost, like, whether you want it or not, you start blending and enmeshing into this oneness, which is beautiful in its own. But there's certain things that are beautiful when you separate again, and you're like, oh, I like this music, or I like to travel to completely different places than my partner, or I like different design, or like, it could be so many small or big things, but you rediscover what you like because you compromise in a relationship, and that's completely normal. That happens to all relationships. So, in a way, regaining that sense of freedom and independence that doesn't exist in a committed relationship has been a beautiful part of the journey.
And it's been beautiful to witness because I can see your glow. I can see your excitement and feel your energy, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
One thing that I've heard you say, even in this interview, a lot is, there's no right or wrong. I'm not judging, and, you do what you want to do as long as you're okay with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be somewhat of a difficult concept for some people to
Mm-hmm.
grasp. Even myself, when I first heard it, I said, well, how is it possible that there's no right or wrong? We've grown
Mm-hmm.
learning there's a right and there is a wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I have read this book recently called
Mm-hmm.
Conversations with God. And it
My
talks a
sister's
lot.
favorite book. Yeah.
Really? That's become my new favorite book.
Mm.
Have you read it?
I've read parts of it, not like cover to cover, but I remember she was obsessed with it at one point, and I remember like dipping in and out of it. But yeah, she was really into it. It really helped her in her journey.
Yeah, I've listened to the audiobook. I'm also an audiobook girl. But in that book, it really outlines how there really is no right or wrong. And I want to know what inspired you, or how did you come to this philosophy
Mm.
in life?
Such a good question, girl. Honestly, I love how deep you like to go. These are
Thank
like
you.
deep questions. I love to be on this level of depth.
I
For
also
anyone
love
listening,
deep questions.
yes, this is so deep. I love it. I think because I was very judgmental of myself. I
Mm.
come from a culture that is very judgmental. I think most cultures in the world are very judgmental. Like now I live in England, there's the yellow press. Everything you do is recorded and judged and speculated. I come from Azerbaijan originally, where again, people love to gossip and judge. And we don't realize how this becomes a part of our identity when we are grown up in that environment. We hear our neighbors do that, our family do that, everybody's judging everyone. And then it becomes part of your subconscious mind. And then you start judging yourself. Every move you make, you judge. And then I think it creates so much suffering and pain for us, right? And when we judge ourselves, we judge others. And then it's just not a good feeling. So I think overall, I've come to a realization A is that I try to be perfect. And there's no way to be perfect in life because we don't know what, when I say what's right or wrong, is like, I can say right now, it's a right thing for you to move out of New York City and go live in Colombia, right? And you can say no, I think it's the right thing for me to stay in New York because there's better opportunities there, right? Like, but who really knows? Maybe when you go to Colombia, you bump into this person and then that person offers you this opportunity. Life works in such beautiful serendipitous ways that we just can't know. We can't know what universe has in store, the bigger picture. So we judge it on the small things, but it's our small ego mind that's judging the situation or reality. So for example, yeah, for someone can judge my situation and say, well, you should stay in a relationship and stick it out because that's what the narrative tells us, the story, like like the social narrative, whether it comes from religion or other sources, just in general, how we're meant to be conditioned that we should stay and stick it out and work on it and force it because that's what society perceives as success at the moment. But we get to change the narrative, right? Does it have to be that way? The truth is, we get to tell our own story of what success is. And that's why when I say there's no right or wrong, one way is not better than the other way. Is it better to have kids or is it better not to have kids? How do you feel? Do you want to have them? Then have them. Like, are you ready for the lifelong commitment of raising a child when, again, you don't know who he or she will be born as in terms of their energy, their health, so many risks. And also, like, based on how you raise them, they'll become independent or they won't. And then they are going to be your responsibility for the rest of your life. So, again, now when people meet me and they tell me, I don't want to have kids, I used to judge people who would say they don't want to have kids. And I would try to convince them to want to have kids because I wanted to have one. I've always known that, like, I want to have a child at least. And after I had one, I was like, you know what? Now, after I have a child and I really now experience the responsibility of having one, I don't think everyone should have a child, especially if they don't feel in them that they want to. If
Mm.
you don't feel like you want to, you definitely shouldn't because it's going to be the biggest challenge and responsibility of your life. again, going back to your question, this is just an example, right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. So as you go through life experiences, I think you get the wisdom, or you have the opportunity of getting the wisdom. And what I've realized is that there's many ways to get somewhere. I think all of our souls have chosen a path, and we come with a purpose, and there's many ways to get there. You know, for someone it is to have kids and raise a family and dedicate their whole life to that, and it's a beautiful journey. It's probably one of the most meaningful journeys, because these humans will then procreate, most likely, at least some of them, and create more life. And how we raise our children is the most important thing, because this is the future of the planet, right? So but again, is it, am I to say that this is more valuable than someone choosing to not have kids and becoming the CEO of a company, and that will also have an impact on the world? There's so many intricacies in life, right? And I think when we are quite immature, and I was that person, because in my super early 20s I was very judgmental, again, towards myself first, and then as you judge yourself you judge others. And then, yeah, I think also going to Vipassana in my early mid 20s really helped me to sit with myself. And as you sit with yourself, your own pain, your own suffering, you have so much more compassion for yourself than you have compassion for others. And you see the big picture. And I think when you see the big picture, like you really zoom out, you're like, actually, there's no right or wrong. It's just we make many, many decisions, some of them quote unquote mistakes, but ultimately they're not mistakes, because they're going to give you the growth you need to get to where you need to go. So sometimes you need to leave a relationship to grow and attract something else, or maybe you'll get back with that person. Like, who knows? Nobody knows. But how we constantly know if we're doing the right thing is how we feel on the inside. And nobody knows how we feel on the inside. Only you know how you feel on the inside, Paolo, or only I know how I feel on the inside, right? Nobody can tell you what to do, what is the right decision. Go apply for that university. I can tell you go start that business, but maybe you like don't feel at all connected or in alignment with starting your own, I don't know, tea company. And I'm like, this is a great opportunity right now. Tea is trending, matcha is trending. Go start a matcha company, right? You're like, I don't even like matcha, but it's a great opportunity. You'll make millions of dollars. Go do it. It's like, what's right? What's wrong? How does it feel on the inside? Go with that. And I think we've become so disconnected as a society from that connection, especially now with the increase of use of social media, and like just we're bombarded by so many messages, and our brain cannot recognize what's real or not anymore. Because when you're watching someone online, from one point of view, it is great. For example, you grew up watching my videos, and probably your brain felt like this person isn't really in my life. It's a friend of mine. It's a sister, like a soul sister, right? Like a cousin, like a person who is in my life, and I really like her, and I'm attracted to her energy, and I'm learning things, and I feel like we have a relationship. Your brain doesn't know the difference. If you use it in a positive way, it's wonderful. You can grow from it. You can have these virtual mentors. But if you also use it in a negative way, and you're consuming information that's putting you down, that's making you compare yourself to someone, um, and just making you feel like you're not enough, then again, it's not productive. But again, who am I to say if it's good or bad? Maybe you need to go through that path to again realize that you need to draw the line. But it takes a lot of willpower to get to that point. And sometimes it's hard to win, because all of these technologies now are made to make us addicted to them. And the ones I think who win in life are the ones who like hack the system, and you use it more in your benefit. Like you're doing it like we did it for years, by creating a business and creating multiple businesses that support our life and freedom and independence. And it's a platform. Otherwise, I would have to go and work for a corporation. So I'm super grateful. And yet I can see how if you don't use it, it can abuse you, and it can completely disconnect you from your intuition and from that inner compass, as we were talking about before, of deciding for yourself what is right or wrong, not what is right or wrong perceived by society.
Right. That's a mindset that I am currently working to adopt, and
I love that.
being free of judgment and, allowing
Mm-hmm.
everyone to go into their own path and do what feels right to them. And also for myself, I also have recently experienced, passing up on opportunities that could be very beneficial or, very lucrative, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel right. So
Mm-hmm.
I I'm not going to take it because it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
take me away from my path of purpose.
Mm. So
Um,
interesting you bring it up. I literally had to do that today. I was working on a project that seemed very exciting at the time. And then I got an offer to do the book, which I'm also very aligned with. And then I was like, oh, but I know my capacity is I have to choose. Sometimes you have two great guys in your life and you're like, oh, which one, right? Like what feels more aligned, right? And then you go there. And I had to do like a very difficult thing is I already had a team of incredible friends who we were gonna do this project together. And today I had to send a voice note because we're all in different places. And I kind of shared vulnerably about how I felt and that I got another opportunity and I'm deciding to choose the other opportunity. And then they all sent me such a nice message back saying that they totally understand. And I think when we're also like in alignment with ourselves, people feel it and they respect that. And that's how you have boundaries in life, right? That's very important. People will respect when you set the boundaries, and people will disrespect you when you don't have those boundaries, because ultimately everyone will do what's right for them, right? Because everyone lives in their own world. So
right.
I love that you also respected your boundaries and you chose what felt more in alignment with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you come from very humble beginnings. You immigrated to Canada and you even helped support your family paying the mortgage
Mm-hmm.
in Canada. But I also know that when you first started Luxy Hair, you made over 1 million in revenue in the first year, which is unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, what was the mindset shift that occurred in order for you to be able to tap into the energy field to be able to
Mm-hmm.
attract that amount of abundance,
Mm-hmm.
especially considering your background and all of those self-limiting beliefs that you may have grown
Mm-hmm.
up with and have
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in your subconscious, because money is a very common lack
Mm-hmm.
mindset for a lot of people. So, how did you
Mm-hmm.
break free from that and continue to thrive on that path?
Mm-hmm. Again, another wonderful question. I think looking back now, it was so clear because we did a lot of inner work before we started the business. Like anytime you look back in your life, you can see, you can like track your steps of how you got to meeting the love of your life or starting that project that like gave you the breakthrough moment. So for us, yes, Luxia here was that first time we flew to the moon, because for us, making 1 million, when you don't come from money, to make 1 million in a year is like flying to the moon. You really have to expand in ways that you've never experienced. For someone who was raised in an affluent background is a very different experience. For us, that was, for both Alex and I, that was not the case. And it's interesting now because I'm studying Kabbalah. I don't know if you've heard of Kabbalah.
I
It's quite
haven't.
trendy now. So Kabbalah is it's a spiritual principles that come from Judaism, but it's not a religion. It's similar to how Sufism comes from Islam. And I love learning about spirituality because I feel like we can learn so much from different, spiritual practices. And the essence is always beautiful. And what I love about specifically Kabbalah is that because it resonates with how I understand expansion in different areas of life. It says there's always an interaction of light and vessel. So you're the vessel, and the light is the abundance. the light wants to give you that love or abundance or etc. But your vessel needs to be able to hold the light. If you haven't expanded, you will self sabotage. This is why, for example, people win a lottery and they lose it all. Or you can meet an incredible person and you self sabotage the relationship. Happens every single day to millions of people, if not billions of people, right? So we self sabotage simply because we haven't made that leap, and we have our vessel hasn't expanded to hold the money or to hold the relationship or to hold the health or to hold the body of our dreams or relationships, friendships, right? It could be any area of your life. And I think for us at that point of life, we were doing a lot of work from Tony Robbins. It was specifically the program called Get the Edge. It's a 10-day program. And even though it's a 10-day program, actually takes you like a month to do because it's intense daily exercises that you have to do. And one of the most powerful exercises, and this is why we created the 5 minute journal even, was this morning ritual of doing the walk, the hour of power. And basically what you do on this walk is you talk about everything as if you have already created it, as if you already have it. Part of it is like saying things that you're grateful for that are in your life. Could be your partner, your health, the fact that you can see and hear and walk, like the basic things that are actually not so basic. Without them nothing is possible. So your body knows when you say all these things, it's true, it's real, you have it, you enjoy it. And then you go into saying things you're grateful for that you haven't yet manifested or created in your reality. So for us, we would be saying things like we're grateful for our business that's generating millions of dollars, and all these incredible friends and community we have around the world who are also people who are entrepreneurs. At the time, we had zero friends who are entrepreneurs. We just, in my case, I dropped out of college. Alex graduated from university. So our friends were our age, recently graduated or working somewhere in corporate. My parents are not technically entrepreneurs. My mom is a piano teacher, so you can say she's self-employed, but it's different, right? Like when you're
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you have a business. Self-employment is a whole different story because you're exchanging time for money. So when you do this powerful exercise of hour of power and you're saying all these things, especially if you're on a walk and you're saying it with someone, but it doesn't matter, even if you're saying it to yourself, you start to embody. And I think that helps your vessel expand. And what I'm learning now as I'm studying Kabbalah, and even before I was studying Kabbalah, Kabbalah helps me to understand that how I'm naturally living my life is actually what's been recorded and used for people in order to create success in their different areas of their lives for 4,000 years plus, right? That's why sometimes information can resonate and can come from different sources. Ultimately, it's setting out a desire, because a lot of religions will say that desires are bad, that we are here to desire nothing. And I never really resonated with that. For example, I love Buddhism. Even I would say Vipassana meditation is what I practiced in my early 20s, really helped me like to release a lot of trauma that was stored in my body. So I will forever be grateful. And I, to this day, I meditate, not super regularly, but if I ever meditate, this is the meditation I use, which comes from Buddha himself, which is called Vipassana meditation. And yet there's parts of that spiritual um, teaching that didn't connect or resonate, which was that you should have no desires. Now, Kabbalah says desires are important. You came to this life to play and experience things. And the problem that happens is when we attach to our desires. For example, if you're like, I need to meet the love of my life. If I don't meet him, like my life is over, like it's worth nothing. This is a problem, or I need this business to succeed, or I need to become friends with this person, or I need to lose weight. Like when you are so obsessed that it's all or nothing, it's black and white, and if this doesn't happen, your whole life is ruined. Again, you're telling the creator that you know what's best, when in reality, again, right or wrong, we don't know. It's a big it's a big journey, and the bigger picture is not exactly sometimes what we see in the moment. And basically, it's about releasing the attachment to the outcome, is what I'm trying to say. You can have a desire to make $1 million, and at the same time, you will be okay whether you get there or not. And this is what we did right at the time, because I remember I quit my job at the bank. We had a little money in the bank account and some money we could borrow from lines of credits and all of that. And I just knew that, I'm going to go all in for a couple of years. And if this doesn't work, well, the worst case scenario is I go back to the bank and waitressing. Like, that's always going to be there. I can always work in customer service because genuinely, I love people. So, like, if I were to go and start from zero, I'm going to choose something that I enjoy, which for me is being of service to people. And there's, hundreds of jobs you can do in that sector. So again, not having fear of failure, right? It's not all or nothing. I know if tomorrow I have to go work as a waitress, my value doesn't change. I am the same. So my also not deriving your value from the success is really important. Is understanding that ultimately, if tomorrow you were to lose everything and everyone, you're still worth the same. And I think when you get to that point in your life is when you become the magnet or drawing things in. Because when you come from lack, you don't magnetize. You have to come from abundance. And when you come from abundance, you start drawing people in, opportunities in, because you're like, I'm good either way. And people feel that. When someone, and I'm sure now because you're also on social media, right? Like, people I'm sure reach out to you all the time and they're like, I want to talk to you. Can I have 10 minutes of your time or half an hour? Or can I take you out for lunch? When you feel this like certain level of desperation, it's almost like it's repelling and you're like, it's like you want to be, but something is off and you're like, oh. But when someone comes from that genuine place of like, hey, like, I really love your work. I would love to buy you coffee. Next time you are in London, please let me know. I'd love to have lunch with you. So they come from abundance. Whether it happens or not doesn't matter. And also, they want to give you something, they don't want to take anything away. That's way more powerful than reaching out to someone is like, I'd like to pick your brain. When can you talk to me? It's like, I don't owe you anything, right? They want to take right away. So I think it's the same. Everything is energy. Money is energy. Other people are their energy, right? Everything. Having a child is energy, right? People struggle with fertility. It's the same thing. They're like so obsessed, like, I need to have a child. Yes, I know that what that can feel like. But at the same time, you need to let go and make peace with the fact if you were never to have a child, you would still be okay with that. And when you make peace with that, you fully surrender, creator, life, universe, whatever. If I'm meant to have a child, send me my child. I'm okay either way. I surrender to you. I surrender to this journey and this path. But you still have the desire to have the child. You still have the desire to have that business or millions of dollars or whatever you are trying to experience. Because if there is a desire, there's part of you that wants to experience that. And I think it's important to embrace that part of you because it's what's giving you life and joy and making you feel like a human being. Like, people who have no desire, it's like, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's like, why are we here?
Right.
Because that desire to have a child or a business is what helps you to grow and expand, right? If you have a desire to create a tea business because like you genuinely feel drawn, you're going to learn all about teas, all kinds of teas, how they're beneficial, where they're grown. And you are, you're living, you're expanding. And it's like, it doesn't feel forced because you want that experience and you genuinely are interested in the industry. And then it becomes secondary whether you're making money or not because you're like, genuinely feel drawn towards that. If you want to have a child, you learn all about kids and like how to raise them and like their psychology. And sometimes it just happens to people. Actually, in most cases, people just get accident children. Let's be real. But I'm saying we're talking about people like more conscious people who like genuinely want that experience. And then, it happens and you go with the flow. But if it doesn't happen, you must surrender because the more you try to force something, the more it repels. And I think, yeah, do you feel like that answers, like, because I can, like, this is a whole, like, a episode
Absolutely.
for a podcast on its own, right? Like,
Yeah, I think I
manifestation
feel
or,
like we can dive into all of
yeah,
these questions in their
yeah.
own episode. Um, yes, that answers my question. Thank you. Well, for the final question, I wanted to ask you, what is a message that you would like to share with the next generation of leaders?
Deep. Lead from the heart. I think we are at a crossroad in history with everything that's happening in the world. I am an optimist. I always see the positive. And yet, if we continue to lead from the ego, there's a potential to destroy all the beauty and all that exists, you know. And again, who am I to say what's right or wrong, right? I think there's a ultimately we have to realize we are part of a collective, right? Like I can have one desire, you can have another desire, but there's also collective desire. And for example, right now we live in an age of AI, which is going to change everything. It's already changed so much, but also people don't realize in the next 2, 3 years, it's going to be interesting because it's going to revolutionize every single industry. And I don't think it's still happening on a small scale. Um, Many of us are now obviously using ChatGPT daily. We're not Googling anymore, but like the compound effect of this technology is really going to shift things in a way none of us can imagine. And I think at the end of the day, what do we have that the machines don't? It's a beating heart. And we're alive. You know, this is one thing that AI will never be able to do is to live. It doesn't have a heart, it doesn't have a soul, it doesn't care what you ask it. It will give you all kind of data, but it doesn't have a genuine desire because it's indifferent. It's not alive. And what makes us special is the fact that we are alive. And it's our beating heart. It's the fact that we have breath. And so, yeah, leading from the heart sets a completely different tone for humanity to live from a different place and of connectedness and oneness and love. And I feel like this is the biggest opportunity that AI can bring us. It's like, okay, it's gonna do all these jobs that anyways are should be redundant and more, because even now, like I have an 8-year-old who uses AI for like, you know, she's learning French now and she was doing a quiz. And I'm thinking, wow, like I personally don't use it for, I use it for education in different areas, but like I'm not in school right now, but I'm like tutors, teachers, lawyers, like everything. And yet what is left? It's our humanity, right? So I think, yeah, leading from love is going to be um, the biggest opportunity for the humanity to create the world of our dreams, because at the end of the day it's a small little planet, blue planet, that has life and abundance. And instead of trying to fly somewhere and create oxygen on a planet that doesn't have this beautiful abundance of what we do, how about we create peace and harmony where it already exists in abundance? So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you so much, Mimi. It's been an
My
honor to
absolute
have you
pleasure.
on. Thank you.